Admiral Zethkar stared at his tactical displays in complete disbelief. What had been a routine military operation against a primitive species had become something unprecedented in galactic military history. His fleet was not just losing, it was being systematically destroyed by forces that should not have existed. "Sir," his tactical officer reported with barely controlled panic, "we've lost contact with the entire Proxima task force, all 47 vessels, including 3 dreadnoughts. The last transmission indicated they were engaging what they described as impossible defensive capabilities." The Admiral's 6 arms trembled with a mixture of rage and fear. "Define impossible, Commander." "The humans appear to have converted an entire star system into a weapons platform, sir. The mining colony was actually a military fortress with firepower equivalent to our entire sector fleet. The civilian miners were elite military personnel using weapons technology we don't understand." Zethkar's primary eyes focused on the strategic display showing the current positions of galactic forces across human space. Red indicators were appearing everywhere as task forces encountered resistance that defied every assumption about human capabilities. "What about the Velkari force approaching New Shanghai?" he demanded. "Admiral Keth Ara is reporting similar discoveries, sir. The agricultural colony is actually a heavily fortified military installation. The farming equipment they detected was actually armored vehicles. The irrigation systems were underground missile networks." The communication system activated, carrying the strained voice of Admiral Keth Ara from the New Shanghai approach. "Command, this is impossible. The humans have turned every civilian settlement into a fortress. The agricultural workers are trained soldiers. Their farming equipment is camouflaged military hardware. How did our intelligence miss this?" Zethkar realized with growing horror that their intelligence hadn't missed anything. The humans had deliberately created an elaborate deception that had lasted for 3 years. Every diplomatic mission, every cultural exchange, every trade negotiation had been carefully orchestrated to maintain the illusion of a peaceful species while they prepared for total war. "Sir," his communication officer reported, "we're receiving a transmission from Earth. It's addressed to all galactic forces and appears to be coming directly from their supreme commander." "Put it through," Zethkar commanded, though he dreaded what he might hear. The main display activated, showing a human female in military uniform standing in what appeared to be an advanced command center. General Sarah Chen looked directly at the camera with the confidence of someone holding superior cards in a deadly game. "Admiral Zethkar," she began, using his name and rank with casual accuracy that implied comprehensive intelligence. "I am General Sarah Chen, Supreme Commander of Human Defense Forces. I believe there have been some fundamental misunderstandings about the nature of this conflict." Zethkar found himself responding despite his better judgment. You face the combined might of 47 civilizations, commanding 3,000 worlds and millions of vessels. Surrender now, and your species may survive this foolishness." Chen's smile was the most terrifying thing Zethkar had ever seen. "Admiral, you've made several critical errors in your assessment of this situation. First, you assumed that human settlements were what they appeared to be. They're not. Every human position in space is actually a military fortress designed specifically to destroy your forces." The display behind her showed tactical readouts that made Zethkar's tactical staff gasp in recognition. The humans had detailed intelligence on every galactic fleet, every weapon system, every tactical doctrine. They had not just prepared for war, they had prepared for war against specific galactic forces using specific galactic strategies. Second, Chen continued with devastating calm, you assumed that human civilian populations would behave like galactic civilian populations during wartime. They won't. Every human civilian is actually a trained combatant prepared to resist any occupation attempt with extreme prejudice. The implications hit Zethkar like a physical blow. Galactic military doctrine assumed that conquering enemy territory involved dealing with helpless civilian populations that would submit to superior force. If every human civilian was actually a trained soldier, then every human settlement would require total destruction rather than simple occupation. Third, and most importantly, Chen's smile became predatory. You assumed that humanity wanted to avoid this conflict. We didn't. We've been preparing for this war since our first contact with galactic civilization because we recognized immediately that it was inevitable. You cannot integrate a species of predators into a community of prey without eventual conflict. Zethkar's tactical displays suddenly erupted with new contacts. Human vessels were appearing throughout galactic space, emerging from concealed positions that should have been impossible to hide. The humans had not just fortified their colonies, they had positioned strike forces throughout galactic territory. How? Zethkar demanded. How did you infiltrate our space without detection? Chen's expression suggested she was enjoying herself immensely. Admiral, for 3 years you've been welcoming human trade missions and cultural exchange programs into your territory. You never questioned why our merchant vessels were so heavily armored or why our cultural attachés spent so much time studying your military installations. You assumed we were primitives trying to learn from superior civilizations. We were actually conducting the most comprehensive intelligence operation in galactic history. The truth was devastating. Every human diplomatic mission had been a military reconnaissance operation. Every trade negotiation had been an opportunity to position assets within galactic territory. Every cultural exchange had been preparation for coordinated strikes against galactic infrastructure. Sir, Zethkar's intelligence officer reported with obvious panic, we're detecting massive human strike forces emerging throughout our territory. They appear to have been concealed for months, possibly years. They're moving against our primary naval bases, supply depots, and communication centers. Chen nodded as if she had heard the report. Operation Prometheus is now in full effect, Admiral. While you've been attempting to attack our heavily fortified frontier positions, our strike forces have been moving against your actual strategic assets. You cannot maintain military operations without supplies, communications, and secure bases. The displays showed the scope of human planning with frightening clarity. Strike forces were hitting galactic supply lines with precision that indicated detailed knowledge of logistics networks. Communication centers were being destroyed by sabotage operations that had been prepared for months. Naval bases were under attack by forces that knew exactly where to strike for maximum damage. This is impossible, Zethkar whispered. No single species could coordinate operations on this scale across such vast distances. You're thinking like galactic civilization, Admiral, Chen explained with the patience of someone explaining basic concepts to a slow student. You assume that complex operations require complex command structures with multiple species coordinating through diplomatic channels. Humans think differently. We have a single command structure, unified doctrine, and complete commitment to victory regardless of cost. What Zethkar could not comprehend was the fundamental difference in military psychology. Galactic civilizations had evolved beyond total warfare, creating professional military classes that operated according to established rules and limitations. Humanity had never evolved beyond total warfare. They had simply become more sophisticated at conducting it. Admiral, Chen continued, you are facing a species that has spent its entire evolutionary history perfecting the art of killing. Every human who drew breath when you declared war is now actively engaged in destroying your forces. We have no civilians in the sense you understand the term. We have only combatants and support personnel. Zethkar's communication system erupted with reports from across the galaxy. Human forces were appearing everywhere, attacking everything, using tactics that violated every principle of civilized warfare. They were not trying to conquer territory or capture resources. They were trying to destroy galactic civilization's ability to conduct coordinated military operations. Sir, his tactical officer reported in barely controlled terror. "Human forces have just destroyed the Rimward supply depot. That's our primary logistics hub for this entire sector. Without it, we cannot maintain fleet operations for more than a few days." "Similar reports from all sectors, sir," added the intelligence officer. "The humans appear to have identified every critical infrastructure point in our territory and are systematically destroying them. Our fleets are being cut off from resupply and communication." Chen watched their realization with obvious satisfaction. "You're beginning to understand, Admiral. You declared war on a species that has been preparing for total warfare since before your civilizations achieved spaceflight. We don't fight the way you fight because we're not civilized the way you're civilized." Zethkar found himself asking the question that terrified him most. "What do you want? What are your terms for ending this conflict?" Chen's expression became deadly serious. "Admiral, this conflict ends when galactic civilization accepts that humanity will not be integrated into your existing order. We will participate in galactic affairs as an equal partner, not as a junior member seeking approval from species that have forgotten how to defend themselves." The truth behind human strategy became clear. They had never intended to conquer galactic civilization. They had intended to demonstrate that galactic civilization could not conquer them. Every human action had been designed to prove that they were predators masquerading as prey, and that any attempt to treat them as a subordinate species would result in catastrophic consequences. Furthermore, Chen continued, galactic military doctrine will be revised to acknowledge human tactical and strategic capabilities. Your assumption that advanced civilization necessarily means peaceful civilization is false. Your assumption that superior numbers automatically mean victory is false. Your assumption that primitive species cannot challenge established orders is false. Zethkar stared at the displays showing the systematic destruction of galactic military infrastructure by forces that had been positioned years in advance. "And if we refuse these terms?" Chen's smile returned, and Zethkar finally understood why humans had smiled when war was declared. "Admiral, you declared war on us. We didn't seek this conflict, but we prepared for it. If you refuse our terms, then this conflict continues until galactic civilization no longer has the capability to threaten humanity." The Admiral realized that humanity had achieved something unprecedented in galactic history. They had forced an entire galaxy to choose between accepting them as equals or facing destruction by a species that was better at warfare than civilizations that had forgotten warfare existed. "Sir," his communication officer reported quietly, "we're receiving surrender requests from fleet commanders throughout our territory. The humans are offering to cease hostilities in exchange for immediate withdrawal from human space and formal recognition of human sovereignty." Zethkar looked at the tactical displays one final time. In 18 hours, the combined might of 47 civilizations had been systematically dismantled by a single species that had spent 3 years preparing for this exact conflict. "Open a channel to all galactic forces," he commanded with the weariness of someone who had finally understood the magnitude of his miscalculation. "This is Admiral Zethkar, to all galactic commanders. Cease all offensive operations against human targets. Begin immediate withdrawal to designated safe zones. We are accepting human terms for cessation of hostilities." The galaxy had declared war on humanity, expecting to integrate or eliminate a troublesome species. Instead, they had discovered that some species are simply too dangerous to challenge, and that the smile of a predator is the last thing their prey ever sees.